welcome to the Grace Box Healing Series. I have my beautiful friend here, Miss Sasha Joesph. If you guys have not subscribed to our channel, go ahead and do that. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Your Grace Box. So I got my boo here. We about to get started talking about how do you show up for your friends? How do you really represent community when people are grieving?
Yeah.
You know, I think that, so we're going to rewind all the way back. It's so crazy because it seems like so long ago, but it literally was like a couple months ago.
Yeah, like 3 months max.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much has happened since then. So I called Sasha. I noticed that Grace was not moving, and you know, instantly it was like, girl, let's pray. You know, we were truly believing that God was going to do a miracle, that Grace was just resting and right, you know, playing a prank on us. And that wasn't the case. And so we dropped our son Nicholas off at Sasha's house, and then we went straight to the hospital so they could do an ultrasound. We found out and got confirmation that indeed the heartbeat was not there. Grace had passed on. And so I come to Sasha's house and I tell her the news. What were you thinking? What were you feeling?
First of all, she played this thing so well. She was like, I have to use the bathroom. And I'm like, okay, fine. So she comes in and she uses the bathroom. And I think that Ahmad, so gentle too, like he took Nicholas to the car.
Yeah.
And when you came out the bathroom, you stood there and you were like, I can still see you now. You were like, so it's confirmed.
Yeah.
You know, baby Grace's heart stopped beating. And I think in that moment, all I could do was just hug you. And I was like, I'm sorry. And it wasn't until you left that I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And I broke down. I really, really did. I was like, God, you know, and I think in the midst of my breaking down, in that moment, it switched to, how will I show up for my friend?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, like sharing in the grief is one thing, but how do I show up for you in you carrying your grief?
Yeah.
And so I was like, all right, super friend overload. You know, S on my chest, what we doing?
It's funny now that you remind me of how it happened. I do remember going to the bathroom first. I was still trying to process. It was so surreal for me. It was like I had spent all this time being pregnant, almost down to the end. I was 36 weeks.
Yeah, like
almost 37 weeks. And in just a split second, you know, all of that was gone. And I was really trying to wrap my head around it. And I think I felt like a level of, I knew that it was going to break the hearts of those that were around me. I think me going to the bathroom was almost like me giving myself a pep talk, like, how am I going to say this? You know, what is their response going to be? How am I going to respond to them? You know, in that moment, I just remember we stood there and we hugged. And I don't think there were any words.
Yeah, sometimes all you have is a hug.
Yeah.
It's just like, girl, these hands.
Right. Because, I mean, both of us were just like.
It was astonishing.
Like, how?
And we've come so far. And literally, it's just like in a moment. It literally was, I'm working, you called. And it was so crazy because even when you called, I knew something was up. And then when you told me that you didn't feel baby Grace moving, I was like, oh, you know, don't be sad. But I could hear it in your voice when you first called. You sounded, something was off. And then after the fact, I was like, oh, that's the sound of worry.
Yeah.
You know, a worried mom. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much after we got the news, they were like, okay, we're going to induce you. even just wrapping my head all around that, like, I had had a baby before, but this was totally different. Right. So it was just like, what is this going to be like? What is this going to look like? Just a lot of worry. I will say, though, that I got a letter from Sasha in the hospital. So mind you, all of this is happening during quarantine, so you cannot have visitors at the hospital.
Not one.
No. And so it was just me and Maud, but Sasha drove to the hospital. She wrote me this letter, and I remember reading it, and I don't know if I've ever told you, but I've always wanted a sister growing up.
So we've talked about that. And so in that moment, right, I'm like, all right, I can't even come to the room. And then again, we're talking about how do we show up for our friends and our loved ones when they're grieving. In your mind, you imagine having a baby. In my mind, I had imagined along these 9 months, these 8 months, that I was going to be laid up with you in the hospital, like scrolling through Instagram, telling jokes, looking at people's posts, being Snoopy or whatever. And so it was like, okay, she's shifting because her expectation is different. How do I express to her? And I'm not very mushy. So I was just like, but I knew in that moment it was going to be so important for me to express to you in words what I had always imagined in my heart. And so it's just like, yes, I wrote this note and I was like, girl, you just gonna have to picture me laid up with you and we on Instagram scrolling, eating up this hospital ice. Because everybody loves hospital ice. But you know what I mean? And so yeah, I needed you to know that. And that was my only token because I wasn't allowed to come into the hospital lobby, wasn't allowed to come up to the room. I wasn't allowed to be there for you physically. And so I felt like my words have to be there, if not my, presence. And so...
And I think absolutely it was so special. It was really, really special. It was like, my friend is here with me is how I felt. And it definitely helped me to feel more hopeful, because I hadn't given birth at that point. I was still going through the induction process and stuff. And so it was very comforting, to say the least. And I still have it. I will keep it forever.
Oh, I'll keep it.
Yes. And so this conversation could literally go on and on and on because we talk that much. Mm-hmm. We are going to do a part 2 of this series. So we can talk a little bit more about what was it like after we left the hospital. And again, if you guys have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. You don't want to miss part 2. If you're not following us on Facebook or Instagram, it's your Grace Box. And we'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.